Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. It's Erev Shabbos, parshas hachodesh, Shabbos Mevorchen Nisan. And it's that time of year again when we tell the stories that the Koznitzer Maggid taught that we should say in the schus, in the merit of the Heilige Rebbe Melech from Luzhensk. Schusam Yagan Leinu Al Kol Yisrael Amen. May their merit protect us in all Israel. Amen. It's generally said that there are 3 stories, but I know of at least 4 stories, and there might be others. And the idea that we have is that, again, this is not what I would call religious. Maybe this is what I call cultural, but it is a form of a religious devotion, I would say, that in the Hasidic world, much like you have in other spiritual traditions, I compare in this particular devotion very much to the Native Americans, who have the spiritual tradition of storytelling, and I believe that they have a similar idea that there comes an energy when you tell these stories. This is an idea that we find because obviously the Bible is a book of energy, and the Bible has a lot of stories. And by telling those stories, of course, there's a tremendous energy that comes through sharing the Bible stories. But any stories of the righteous people, of the tzaddikim, of the saints, has power of energy that can enter into our lives. At least that's according to the Hasidic teachings. This is not a fundamental dogma of Judaism. This is a particular belief among the Hasidic Jews. But it seems to be, first of all, a universal spiritual truth, but second of all, based in biblical ideas. We also have a tradition. The Talmud says that God looked into the works of the righteous, the stories, the Ma'aseh HaTzadikim, the stories of the righteous, of the saints, the Tzadikim, and was able to, and for that reason created the world. And so we have a tradition, for example, to tell stories every Saturday night, because that's the beginning of the new week, and that God essentially is willing to create the world for another 6 days because of the stories of the saints, of the tzaddikim, among other things. That, and our week is blessed by these stories. So often on a Saturday night, if there's a yard site either that night or coming in the following week, we'll tell stories of those tzaddikim, but also the stories that we tell, it said, brings the blessings that are mentioned in the story. So if you talk of a story of a saint performing a miracle, of a tzaddik doing a moifus, blessing somebody with some kind of a blessing, someone having trouble having children and they have a child, someone trying to get married and they find their soulmate, somebody having problems financially and they become prosperous, someone who is ill and they are healed. By telling these stories, we impart that energy through this devotion of telling the story. And so these stories are particularly stories that, and the way that the tzaddikim teach is that there's a particular strength, Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night, but really the truth is that this energy happens anytime, and the generally understood teaching is that particularly on this Shabbos, to tell these stories imparts an energy of prosperity, particularly because Passover is such a an expensive holiday, so we engage in this spiritual devotion in order to draw down energy of prosperity, of financial prosperity, so we can afford for the food and the cleaning and everything that we need for the holiday. So the matzah and everything else. So let's go through it. So again, I'm telling these stories today so you can learn them now before Shabbos and tell them yourself on Shabbos, because to impart that energy as well, So the first story, and again, when we say that these stories should be told, it was the Koznitzer Maggid who taught to tell these stories in the merit of the Rebbe Melech from Lezhensk. So the first story was a story of the Rebbe Melech. Most of these stories are older stories, but this one is particularly, it's a story of the Rebbe Melech, of the Rebbe Elimelech from Lezhensk, who lived in Poland in the late 1700s. And he was from the third generation of the Hasidic masters, and the Koznitzer Maggid was a student of his. So was a disciple of his. So the Rebbe Melech, Chassid came to him with a problem. He didn't have any money for Passover, so Rebbe Melech said, you should invest wholesale a barrel of whiskey and sell 1 cup at a time, retail price, and you'll make a profit from that. And that's how you'll be able to make money to pay for the holiday of Passover, of Pesach. So he went. Poland, I believe at that time, still was not a unified country. Yeah, it was certainly at that time. It was not a unified country, but it was rather many different small kingdoms, provinces, and each province had their own king or ruler, and they had the borders. So this Jew, this Chassid, he had a barrel of whiskey, and it was a small province. He went over to the next province, and the border guards, they seized the barrel of whiskey. And so here he lost all his livelihood. So Rebbe Melech said, you should go back. So the Chassid ran to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him, go back to the border guards and tell them, the customs agents, and tell them this barrel is just a barrel of water. If you want, you can taste it and see. Well, they didn't believe him, but they felt like, they'll get a nice drink of whiskey. So they're willing to try. This crazy Jew, why is he carrying around a barrel of water? So they'll all get a cup of whiskey, and they saw it was just water. So they let him go. He's a stupid Jew. What are you doing carrying around a barrel of whiskey? But then he went back to I have a barrel of water. What do you need that for? So he went back to Rebbe Melech. He said, what am I supposed to do with this barrel of water? He was already over the border, but he ran back and he left it maybe with a friend of his or something. I don't know. So Rebbe Melech said, no, go taste it again, and turn back to whiskey. And that's what it was. And he sold it cup by cup, and he was able to make a lot of money. He had money for Pesach and for the whole year, and so too we should be blessed to have enough money for Pesach and for the whole year and for our whole lives. So the next story was that there was a Yid who was very simple, but at least he was literate, and he didn't have money for Pesach. And he wrote a letter to God, and he said, most exalted King of Kings, I need money for Pesach. This is my address. This is where I live. Please send me this money so I can celebrate this holiday and serve you in truth. And he wrote the letter, and he put it on an arrow, and he shot the arrow, the bow and arrow, randomly into the woods. That's how he's sending this letter. Maybe he shot it up. I think probably he shot it up to heaven, up in the sky, because he's sending a letter to God. And this was in his ignorance and simplicity. And the arrow landed on a tree in the woods, and there in the woods was the king was out hunting. You know, like you see the pictures of the old kings. They went hunting for foxes. They bring the hound with them to go hunting. And he finds this letter, and he figures, all right, I'll send this money to the Jew. And he sent a lot more money than the guy thought he would ever get. And so he had the money, and from his simple faith, God caused this to happen. And just like he had money for Pesach, so too we should have money for Pesach, and for the whole year and for our whole lives. We should all be blessed with prosperity and the schus of the Heilige Melech from the schus of the. And the next story was that there was a king who lost his ring, and he made an announcement. He really loved this ring. It was a very valuable ring. He made an announcement that anyone who would dedicate any time to looking for the ring, whether or not he finds it, will get paid a salary to go look for the ring. So there's a Yid. His wife, he didn't have any money for Pesach. His wife heard about this, and she said to her husband, Yankala, go look for the king's ring. He'll give you some money, and then we'll have money for Pesach, and we'll make Pesach, and then, and then after Yom Tov, you go look. If they didn't find it yet, you go look more, but look for a few days, and then. So that's what he did, and he took the money, and he was looking, but then it was Pesach, so he had the money. So he made Yantiv. So meanwhile, the king had an advisor who was a priest, and he was not too fond of the Jewish community. And the priest saw this, that this Yankov, he's sitting like a king, eating a lavish meal, Pesach, and he goes, tells the king, what's going on here. So the king comes with him to Yankov's house, and he listens through the window, and they're doing, they're saying, Eli, Eli, Haitziuni, Haitziuni, Mitzrayim, Haitziuni, Da, Yaini, because they were Galicianer, Polish Galicianer, Hungarian, something. They pronounced what the other Jews would say, Dayenu. They said, Dayaini. So the king said, these Jews, they have their Jew magic, they're probably, I don't know what incantation they're saying, but it sounds like they're saying, who stole the ring? Dayaini. Who stole the ring? Dayaini. And what was this priest's name? Was Dayaini. And he actually stole the ring. And so the Jew got a big reward for helping to find this ring, for finding the culprit. And so he not only had money for Pesach, he had money for the whole year, for the whole life, and so too we should be blessed to have money for Pesach and for the whole year and for our whole lives. So the final story, my wife hates this story, but we tell this story, was that there was a Yid, Moshe, Moshe, Moses, and I don't remember exactly the whole story. I think part of it was he was a tailor, and he rescued the king, and the king either made him his tailor, not the king, was a feudal lord, a poritz, on a serfdom, and he made him a serf, but his serfdom was a more elevated serfdom, was that he was a tailor, So he was working for the feudal lords. He had Lord and Taylor, right? Anyway, it was something, he saved their child or something, his wife. It was a whole story, but the feudal lord asked this tailor, the parts asked the Yid, the serf, how do you, how's business going? How's your life going? So the Yid, he answered, Moshka, he said, Baruch Hashem, God takes care of me. So Poritz, this feudal lord, he got very angry. He said, God takes care of you? What are you talking about? I take care of you. My wife and I, we take care of you. We pay your salary and everything. Let God take care of you. We're going to stop paying you. It was just before Pesach. He didn't care, Moshka. He knew that God would take care of him. He was expressing his faith. That's what it was. So, meanwhile, this feudal lord, he went to his counting house and counting all his money. And while he's counting the money, you know, you ever see in the old cartoons, like you bite the coin to make sure it's real. So he was doing that. He was like biting every coin to see if it's real, or some versions of the story which is a little bit more disgusting. Well, you know, how backwards these people were back then. He was cleaning the coins with his saliva, which is absolutely disgusting. But either way, he was putting the coins in his mouth, biting them, or cleaning them, or something. It's much more dirty that way. But anyway, he had a pet monkey. And you know what they say, monkey see, monkey do. The monkey saw this guy putting coins in his mouth. So the monkey also started doing that, putting coins in his mouth. And he got up and left, but he left the monkey there. And the monkey ate a bunch of coins. You know, $1 million in coins. Something, you know, a lot of money, we'll say. And then the monkey died from, you know, metal poisoning, eating all the gold coins, right? So the Poritz finds this dead monkey in his counting house, where he's counting all his money. And he didn't know that the monkey was filled with coins. So he takes this dead monkey, the nevela, and he throws it through the window of Mashkala of this Jew. And it lands on the kitchen table, and they see this dead monkey flies in through the window, a flying monkey like the Wizard of Oz, but didn't have wings. Maybe it had a little hat or a little suit, I don't know, a little vest or something, you know. But this monkey flew in through the window, and a coin fell out of its mouth, and they picked it up, and they felt like there's coins in there, and they either, I don't know, my wife doesn't like that, they cut it open, you know, or maybe they just shook it out or whatever, and they had all these coins, you know, well, you know, millions of dollars that they from this monkey that flew in through the window. Well, maybe the is open. Oh, let's turn around. So that was the story. Was that the Poritz comes in and sees them, you know, enjoying a beautiful Pesach, and they said, you know, where'd you get the money from? And they said, I don't know, this dead monkey flew into my window, and that's how we have money for Pesach. So the Poritz saw that God really was in control, and that's how they had Pesach. So too, just like they were blessed with money for Passover and the whole year, and their whole lives. They were very wealthy. They actually built a synagogue. There's a story. There's a synagogue in Prague that I think that's the Pinkasova shul, I think, was built from this story. So that's how they became, you know. So too, we should be blessed to have money for Pesach and for the whole year and for our whole lives. Thank you for watching. God bless. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a good Shabbos. We'll see you later. See you.